Association of Professional Political Consultants, the body which represents lobbyists. And we're also joined by Tamsin Cave, Director of Spinwatch, which campaigns for transparency in lobbying. Very good morning, good afternoon indeed to you both. Tamsin, first of all, and now, I mean, the basic defence from both of these men is lots of other MPs do it, and it's all within the rules. Have they done anything wrong?
Well, it's all within the rules argument we've heard before. I think it was 5 years ago when we had MPs' expenses. It may be acceptable to Parliament, but what's acceptable to Parliament may not be acceptable to the public. And I think this is another one where Westminster needs its bubble bursting. It needs to realise that MPs are working for their constituents, and we do not expect them to have outside jobs where they're representing the interests of somebody else. So I think it's another wake-up call.
OK, well, it's a pretty simple point then, Iain Anderson. What are lobbyists doing here, trying to get MPs to influence legislation perhaps on their behalf? They should be working solely for the people who elected them into the job.
Well, this is a really good point, Dermot. I mean, once again, we've got a lobbying story where there are no professional lobbyists to be seen. Now, I heard the Prime Minister earlier say that the government's brought in a lobbying act which would clean all this up. I mean, the lobbying act is a total disaster. It wouldn't have stopped anything that we've seen in the past 24 hours that we're going to watch on dispatches tonight. So the government's not got a solution right. We clearly need to look at the rules for MPs again, but the Lobbying Act won't do any of it. And as I say, there are no professional lobbyists to be seen.
Well, give us some suggestions, Iain. Just stay with you and see if Tamsin agrees. What kind of teeth should a proper act have?
Well, I mean, firstly, it should cover both ministers and any member of Parliament. All the Lobbying Act does at the minute is it purely covers ministers. And we reckon, at the APPC, it's only going to cover about 1% of the actual lobbying activity that actually takes place. It's a total whitewash. And as I say, it wouldn't have stopped anything that we've seen in the past 24 hours.
Well, Tamsin Cave, could you go along with that? I mean, proper lobbyists like Iain say, well, yeah, we do need more regulation.
Surprisingly, the government's managed to unite myself and the lobbying industry over this, a lot of the lobbying industry. I mean, Iain's being kind. The lobbying bill, the register that introduces, is a joke. I mean, it's been 5 years of numerous scandals, and it is an utter farce. It will do absolutely nothing to open up lobbying to public scrutiny. I disagree, though, with the idea that there are no professional lobbyists involved in this story. At the moment, we have a situation where there is no barrier between our legislators and the influence industry. We have a £2 billion commercial influence industry, and it's very difficult sometimes, particularly in the House of Lords, to distinguish who is working for whom. We have legislators who have so many outside interests, you don't know whether they're, in this instance, representing PricewaterhouseCoopers or the public interest. So there needs to be very, very clear distinctions made there.
Just to get your suggestion, what could that barrier be?
Well, I think Iain's right. You need to introduce a robust statutory register of lobbyists. That would then say these are the interests that are lobbying, that are trying to change the decisions of our government. These are the people that are trying to change regulations, change legislation. And actually then you would have, it would make MPs' lives much easier. They would be able to say, who's on this list and who's legitimate and who's not, because at the moment we have a culture within Westminster where clearly this kind of behaviour is okay, that they won't alert to it. I mean, these scandals come up and these stings come up with so much regularity, you have only to conclude that it's normal practice.
But that's the point, isn't it, Iain Anderson? One suspects that, obviously, if these job offers had been real, I mean, Sir Malcolm and Jack Straw were very clear about it. They declare all the work they do outside of Parliament in that existing register of members' interests.
Well, exactly right. But I mean, the point that was being made earlier is, Jack Straw was quite rightly saying, as was Malcolm Rifkin, that, they checked out these interests. Now, if there was a regime which frankly allowed you to see who the public policy professionals are. And people like me are happy to stand up and be counted. You can clearly see that we're there to do a government relations job. Then frankly, these kind of sting operations wouldn't arise. That would be the clearest and most sensible thing to do.
Well, listen, thanks for your clear and sensible thoughts. Both of you, Iain Anderson, Tamsin Cave, very good to see you both.
Thank you.
And this is Sky News, still coming up this hour.